Hi there, my name is Kiera Sanesteven, and I'm going to be talking about how healthcare can change based on your sexual orientation and being a veteran, as well as having disabilities, because all of those things can put you at risk for having a healthcare plan that is different than if you are not in either of those communities. For example, I was out as bisexual when I was in school, and it made everything a bit more complicated. I wasn't trusted around my peers, and I wasn't allowed to join cheerleading, which is actually very common among LGBTQ students, which can put them at risk for mental health issues as well as suicide. The suicide risk is increasingly larger for those students in the LGBT community and those students that are not in the LGBT community. They are typically victimized specifically in classes like PE or physical education classes, where they're not sitting in a classroom able to be monitored at all time. As well as sports. Sports are a big thing for the LGBT community. They are able to be taken out of sports based on their sexual orientation for various reasons. That is unfair. They're able to take away our right as students to participate in sports, which can also lead to depression and anxiety and suicide, which can transfer over into their schoolwork. I know that when I was in school that I never performed probably as well as I could have, because I could not focus on anything other than the constant bullying and tormenting that I was getting at the time. It can put students at risk for not being able to fulfill all of their wants and needs during those times. We have a desire to want to be with other people. We have a desire to have some camaraderie in schools, and taking sports away from a kid can be taking away an outlet for what they're going through at the time. Moving on to veterans that are in the LGBT community are at a huge risk, especially regarding the don't ask, don't tell rule of the entire thing. Specifically a Marine named Tim I read about, and he opened up that he felt stress and isolated while he was working, because he could not fully express himself or be honest with his friends and family members about his relationship. This then led to a substance misuse, which in my case, I am in recovery from drugs and alcohol, and I can say that in school, because of the isolation, that is where a lot of my misuse started with substances. He expressed how he came back a different person because he wasn't able to be himself there, and once people started finding out, he was looked at differently. This unfortunately happens all of the time in America, and specifically Texas, with all of the don't ask, don't tell rules. We are not allowed to share that part of ourselves. For example, my siblings were in kindergarten, and they had two moms. They had my mom and a stepmom who were in a relationship, and they were told that they were not allowed to talk about their moms at school because it looked a little differently than everyone else's. And they would come home and they would just be so sad at 4 and 5 years old that they couldn't share going to the park with their moms or going to Chuck E. Cheese with their moms. And right there is where the isolation started, that we had to address, to it wouldn't spiral and become something way bigger and eventually lead them to more mental health problems and even at risk for suicide. I think that if everyone regarding veterans and people with disabilities and the LGBT community, if we all were able to have an open line of communication and acceptance, we would be able to get the same rights for everyone, because that is what we're missing, right? We are just wanting the same exact rights that everyone else can get, and I think with just having some open communication and some acceptance, we would be able to get that for everyone.